Once a long, long time ago, God's people, the Israelites, were in big trouble. Their enemies, the Philistines, were in charge, and life was very hard. But God had a plan, a secret, wonderful plan. He sent a shining angel with a message for a woman who could not have any children. The angel told her, "You are going to have a son. He will be very special. He will begin to save my people." This was amazing news, a promise whispered from heaven. The woman and her husband Manoah were filled with a great big joy that bubbled up inside them like a spring of fresh water. They knew this child was a gift. The angel gave them very important rules. This baby was to be a Nazirite, which meant he belonged to God in a special way. There were 3 big rules for him to follow his whole life. First, he must never, ever drink wine or anything strong. Second, he must not eat any food that was considered unclean. And the third rule, the most important one, was that a razor must never, ever touch his hair. His long hair would be a sign to everyone, a constant reminder of his promise to God. It was the source of a great secret, a power that would come directly from God himself as long as he kept his promise. So the baby was born, and his parents named him Samson. As Samson grew from a little baby into a boy, and then into a young man, the Lord blessed him. You could see it. The Spirit of God was with him, like a warm, powerful wind stirring around him. He wasn't just growing taller, he was growing stronger, much, much stronger than anyone else. His muscles were not just big, they were filled with a power that no one could explain. It was God's strength, a special gift just for Samson, preparing him for the big job God had planned for him to do. He was getting ready to face the enemies of his people. One day, when Samson was a young man, he went to a Philistine town called Timnah. There, he saw a woman he wanted to marry. On his way to see her, a young lion with loud roars and sharp teeth jumped out at him. But the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon Samson with great power. He grabbed the lion with his bare hands and tore it apart as easily as if it were a little piece of paper. He didn't even have a sword or a spear. It was his first big test, and he showed everyone and himself just how incredibly strong God had made him. He kept it a secret, a quiet hint of the amazing things to come. Samson went ahead with his plan to marry the Philistine woman. At his wedding feast, which lasted for 7 whole days, he decided to play a game. He told his 30 Philistine companions a riddle. "I have a puzzle for you," he said with a smile. "If you can solve it, I will give you 30 fine linen robes and 30 sets of fancy clothes." The riddle was about the lion he had secretly defeated. Out of the eater, something to eat. Out of the strong, something sweet. The men were completely stumped. They whispered and they argued, but they could not figure out the tricky words. The puzzle was too hard for them. The Philistine men became angry and frustrated. They did not want to lose the bet. So they went to Samson's new wife and threatened her. "You must find out the answer for us, or we will harm you and your family," they said. She was very scared. She cried and begged Samson to tell her the secret. For days she pleaded with him until finally he gave in and told her the answer. It was about the honey he found inside the lion's body. As soon as she knew, she ran and told the Philistine men. They came to Samson and said, "What is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion?" Samson knew immediately that he had been tricked. Samson was filled with a burning anger. His heart hurt because his wife had betrayed his secret. The Spirit of the Lord came over him again, and he went to another Philistine city, where he defeated 30 men and took their clothes to pay his debt. But his problems were just beginning. Later, when he tried to see his wife, her father told him she had been given to another man. In a rage, Samson caught 300 foxes. He tied their tails together in pairs, put a burning torch between each pair, and set them loose in the Philistines' fields. He burned all their grain, their vineyards, and their olive groves, destroying their food supply. The Philistines were furious about their burned fields. They wanted to punish Samson, but they couldn't catch him. He was too strong and too fast. So the Philistines gathered a huge army to fight against him. The men of Judah, Samson's own people, were scared. They tied Samson up with new ropes and handed him over to his enemies. But as the Philistines shouted with joy, the Spirit of God gave Samson a burst of power. He snapped the ropes as if they were tiny threads. He saw the jawbone of a donkey on the ground, picked it up, and with that simple bone he defeated 1,000 Philistine soldiers. Everyone was amazed and terrified of his incredible strength. Samson continued to be a thorn in the side of the Philistines. He was a one-man army, a hero for his people, using his God-given strength to protect them. One time he went to a Philistine city called Gaza. His enemies found out he was there and surrounded the city gates, planning to capture him in the morning. But Samson was clever. In the middle of the night, he woke up, walked to the city gate, and did something impossible. He ripped the giant, heavy city gates, posts, bar, and all, right out of the ground. Then he lifted them onto his shoulders and carried them all the way to the top of a hill, miles away. Later, Samson's life took a dangerous turn. He fell in love with a woman named Delilah. The Philistine rulers saw their chance. They went to Delilah in secret and made her a deal. "Find out the secret of Samson's great strength," they said, "and we will each give you 1,100 pieces of silver." It was a huge amount of money, more than she could ever imagine. Delilah loved the money more than she loved Samson, so she agreed to their wicked plan. She started to ask Samson, again and again, about the source of his incredible power. Her words were sweet like honey, but her heart was full of lies. 3 times Delilah tried to trick Samson. "Please tell me your secret," she would beg. "How can someone tie you up and make you weak?" Each time Samson told her a lie. First he said, "If you tie me with 7 fresh bowstrings, I will be as weak as any other man." So she did, but he snapped them easily. Then he told her to use new ropes, but he broke those too. He even let her weave his long hair into a loom, but when he stood up, he walked away with the whole machine. Delilah was getting frustrated, but the Philistine rulers told her to keep trying. Finally, Delilah's constant questions wore Samson down. She cried and pouted, saying, "How can you say you love me if you won't share your secret with me?" Day after day, she nagged him until his soul was tired to the point of death. At last, he gave up. He told her everything. He told her about the promise to God, the Nazirite vow from his birth. "My strength is in my hair," he confessed. "It has never been cut. If you shave my head, my strength will leave me, and I will become as weak as any other man." He had given away God's secret, the most important part of his life. Delilah knew that this time, Samson had told her the truth. She sent a message to the Philistine rulers. "Come one more time, he has told me everything." While Samson slept soundly with his head in her lap, a man came in and quietly shaved off the 7 long braids of his hair. The sign of his promise to God was gone. Delilah shook him awake and shouted, "Samson, the Philistines are here." He woke up and thought, "I will go out as I did before and shake myself free." But he did not know that the Lord had left him. His great strength was gone. He was helpless. The Philistines grabbed him easily. This time there was no escape. To make sure he could never fight again, they did a terrible thing. They gouged out his eyes. They took the strong man who had once terrified them and made him blind and weak. They bound him with heavy bronze chains and took him to a prison in Gaza. There, they forced him to do the work of an animal, grinding grain at a large millstone. All the Philistines laughed at the great Samson, now their powerless slave. But they forgot one very important thing. They forgot about his hair. Slowly, day by day, it began to grow back. Sometime later, the Philistines decided to have a giant party to celebrate their victory and to praise their god, Dagon, for delivering Samson into their hands. The temple was packed with people, with about 3,000 men and women on the roof, all cheering. They shouted, "Bring out Samson to entertain us." So the guards brought the blind Samson out and made him stand between the 2 main pillars that held up the entire temple. The crowd jeered and mocked him, but Samson was not listening to them. He was praying quietly to God with all his heart. Samson said a final desperate prayer. "Sovereign Lord, please remember me. Please, God, give me strength just one more time." He placed his right hand on one pillar and his left hand on the other. He felt a familiar power, a mighty strength, flowing back into his arms. It was God's answer to his prayer. With a great shout, he pushed with all his might. The massive stone pillars began to crack and groan. The temple trembled, and then, with a deafening roar, it came crashing down, burying the Philistine rulers and all the thousands of people inside. In his death, Samson defeated more of his enemies than he ever had in his entire life, fulfilling God's plan.